Two coworkers stand by the coffee machine. One says, "Busy week?" The other replies, "Yeah, you know how it is." Nothing remarkable happens. No conflict, no revelation, no drama. And yet, in those 4 seconds, a quiet negotiation has taken place, one neither person consciously registered. A question was asked not for information, but for connection. An answer was given not to inform, but to signal solidarity. This is the paradox at the heart of human communication. The most ordinary exchanges are often the most psychologically loaded. We tend to imagine that meaningful psychology lives in therapy sessions, courtrooms, or high-stakes negotiations. But the truth is far more surprising and far more useful. The deepest patterns of human behavior reveal themselves not in rare, dramatic moments, but in the conversations we have dozens of times a day and barely remember by evening. Every "How are you?" Every "Let me think about it." Every silence that lingers half a second too long. These are not empty rituals. They are data. And learning to read that data is one of the most powerful, underused skills a person can develop. Consider mirroring, the unconscious tendency to copy another person's tone, posture, or pace of speech. When two people are building trust, their bodies and voices begin to synchronize almost like a quiet duet. You lean forward slightly, and without noticing, so do they. You slow your speech, and their rhythm follows. This isn't coincidence. It's biology working in service of connection. Mirroring signals safety. It tells the other person's nervous system, "I'm like you. You can relax around me." The individuals who build the strongest relationships, whether in friendships or in leadership, are often doing this instinctively, without ever naming the mechanism behind it. Then, there is one of the most underestimated tools in conversation: the pause. In a culture that prizes quick wit and fast replies, silence can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. But psychologically, a pause is not empty space. It's pressure, patience, and invitation all at once. A well-placed silence after a question often draws out a more honest, more considered answer than any follow-up question could. The person who resists the urge to fill silence is, whether they realize it or not, wielding real psychological influence, creating space for truth rather than performance. And finally, consider the small verbal signals we exchange almost automatically. "I see. That makes sense. Right. These micro-validations seem trivial, even meaningless. But they function as psychological reassurance. They tell the speaker, "You are being heard. Continue." Without them, conversations feel cold, transactional, even hostile. With them, trust builds in increments so small they're almost invisible, yet the cumulative effect is enormous. None of this is about manipulation. It's about emotional intelligence, the capacity to notice what is actually happening beneath the surface of ordinary interaction, and to respond with intention rather than autopilot. The people we describe as naturally good with others are rarely more intelligent or more charming in some abstract sense. They have simply learned, consciously or not, to read this hidden layer of communication and to work with it rather than against it. This is the quiet, motivating truth beneath the science. You don't need to become a different person to transform your relationships. You need only become more aware of the patterns already unfolding in front of you, in every conversation, every single day. But here's the deeper question worth sitting with. If these unconscious signals are shaping our relationships, our careers, and our sense of connection constantly, how much of this hidden language are we missing entirely? And what would change if we finally learned to hear it? Psychologists call this the labeling effect, and its power lies in its simplicity. When someone says, "This project has been a nightmare," the instinctive response is to fix, defend, or explain. But the more effective response, the one that actually diffuses tension, is to reflect the emotion back. It sounds like this has been exhausting for you. Something shifts in that moment. The other person doesn't feel managed. They feel understood. And understood people become less defensive, more open, more willing to problem solve rather than protect themselves. This single habit, repeated consistently, can quietly transform how conflict unfolds in a marriage, a team meeting, or a difficult phone call. Alongside labeling sits a second, subtler tool: strategic questioning. Most people ask questions to gather facts. Skilled communicators ask questions to open doors. Why didn't this work? Invites justification and defensiveness. What would need to change for this to work next time? Invites reflection and ownership. The difference is not politeness, it's architecture. Open-ended questions built around possibility rather than blame consistently produce more honest, more useful answers because they remove the psychological thread that shuts people down. There is also the matter of tone and pacing, the parts of speech we notice least yet judge most. Research in communication consistently shows that listeners form snap judgments of trustworthiness not from what is said, but from how steadily it's said. A voice that slows slightly under pressure reads as composed. A voice that speeds up reads as anxious or evasive, regardless of the actual content. This is why the most respected negotiators, clinicians, and leaders often share one trait that has nothing to do with intelligence. They have trained themselves to stay measured when the moment tempts them to rush. None of these tools are exotic. They are already used, instinctively, by the people we admire most. The therapist who makes a stranger feel safe within minutes. The manager who turns a tense meeting into a productive one. The friend who always seems to know exactly what to say. What separates them from everyone else isn't a rare gift. It's practiced attention. They have simply spent more time noticing the layer beneath the words and choosing their response deliberately instead of reactively. And this is the real shift Part 2 offers. Mastering conversation was never about gaining control over other people. It was never about reading someone like a puzzle to be solved. It is about presence, the discipline of showing up fully in moments most people move through on autopilot. Every labeled emotion, every well-placed pause, every steady tone is, at its core, an act of attention. And attention, given consistently, is one of the most quietly powerful forces in any relationship. The people who transform their careers, their friendships, and their sense of connection to others rarely do it through dramatic gestures. They do it through hundreds of small, ordinary conversations, approached with a little more awareness than the day before. So here is the question worth carrying with you. The next time you find yourself in an unremarkable exchange, a hallway greeting, a quick check-in, a passing, "How's it going?" will you let it pass by unnoticed the way you always have? Or will you pause, just for a moment, and really listen to what's being said beneath the words?